regarding Part 11 compliance and the role of standard operating procedures. The reason I developed this webinar is because in the last several years I've noticed in my travels and on audits of most likely the smaller and newer firms, they have implemented all the, or believe they implemented all the technical controls for Part 11 compliance, but their standard operating procedures and documentation were very sorely lacking. We found that most, these newer and smaller firms, kind of didn't put enough focus on that area. And, when it came time for audits, they were severely dinged, or, the audit report severely reflected their deficiency in that respect. So that led me to developing this webinar and trying to help, everybody in creating a very nice SOP. So when you are audited, you can, sit back confidently and say, hand over your documentation to the auditor inspector, and just kind of sit back and just answer whatever questions and not really have to worry. We found with a good set of standard operating procedures in place that it helps improve the image of your organization, of your department, and saying that hey, we've got our act together, we know what we're doing, and so that usually helps the audits go much smoother. So with that being said, I'm going to begin. So let's quickly go over the agenda. The first thing we're going to do, we're just going to go over the Part 11 requirements. I know most of you probably already know them, but let's just go over them just because this is what these SOPs are going to be dealing with. So after we go over Part 11 and what it requires, we're going to be talking about the SOPs that go along with it. What do we need to have in place for an audit, okay? And I'm going to go into, what are the essential elements, what's nice to have, and so on and so forth. After that, I'm going to talk about validation of computer systems. I might focus a little heavily on that, but it is a very important part in maintaining your Part 11 compliance, and these SOPs kind of feed into the validation. So that's why there's a heavy focus on that in this webinar. So we are also going to be talking about buying software that's off the shelf. So there's a little things you need to consider when doing that. Sometimes what you need, you may not have to hire a developer or programmer to do for you. There might just be something off the shelf that you can buy, and so we're going to talk about, whatever pitfalls you can avoid when you have to do that, okay? And finally, we're going to be talking about what you need to do and what you can expect when you are being audited by, either the FDA or, a potential client, okay? So we go on to this next slide. All right, down to the basics. What is 21 CFR Part 11? Well, in a nutshell, it is a set of regulations devised by the FDA that, we're obligated to follow within this industry, okay? And they focus on electronic records and electronic signatures. And they are there to maintain or to ensure that all of these electronic records are reliable and that they are the equivalent to paper records and handwritten signatures, right? So it's mostly about focusing on the integrity, okay? That being said, Part 11, there's been years and years of controversy. It was too restrictive, it doesn't make sense, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't fit for us. And, this regulation, or these regulations were written, over 15 years ago. And over the course of these 15 years, there's been a lot of evolving and shift of focus. And the current shift, or the current focus right now is on their integrity. And, what is the risk of, what is the risk to the data integrity? What happens or how can we mitigate risk in making sure that these records are reliable, okay? And as I said before, what